Hello and welcome to Campaign Comrades. Sleepers, it's time to wake up. You've got to clock into your shift at, the bar.
Oh, one more hour. I don't want
You've
to
got
wake up.
to you've got to stave off the inevitable decline of your breaking body. Man, for a game that's about a literal android, never have I felt more represented in a game by just, having to do the mundanity of living and just under the specter of, your inevitable death at any moment as your body is just slowly decaying around you. It's pretty frightening stuff, folks. But yeah, folks, we're talking about Citizen Sleeper. It's December. It's my game pick of the year. This was a surprise game for me that I played originally on Game Pass when it came out, and that was I think 2 years ago at this point. I played it before I moved. I think it was a 2022.
Yeah, it is.
And
it's 22.
So I played it originally on Game Pass, and then loved it so much that I bought it on Steam and did a full second playthrough for the pod, including the DLCs, which I had not come out at the time that I played it, and I had constantly thought that I'm gonna go back to give those a shot at some point, but never got around to it. So I'm grateful that we actually had this. We had some content changes here for my pick, kind of not really last minute, but close to the wire. So this was just a perfect opportunity for me to revisit this, and I'm glad I did. It allowed me to make different choices than I did previously, but also cemented some choices that I had done and in my mind kind of feel like are the canon paths. And I feel like I have a full grasp of the story now, and I like the DLCs. There's these 3 episodes that are very interesting. They introduce some new characters. They kind of expand the section of the eye and include this refugee flotilla, and you're dealing with getting
Such a great
them,
word.
getting them, trying to get them integrated into the station, but you're also dealing with this kind
Oh,
of...
you're just giving them mushrooms. Just be real.
I mean, yeah, is this a real... Is everything that's going on here real, or is it just a product of your imagination fueled by psilocybin? Who's to say?
Well, it's a pretty base future society. They pretty much only exist off of 17 different types of mushroom.
Yeah.
Hey, it's got all these nutrients. It's also the closest thing we have to alien life forms on this planet.
I just say it's one of those weird all plant life all plant life feels, but fungus has an actual brain. So where does that fall in the vegetarian vegan spectrum?
Yeah. Do these mushrooms feel pain? And if you jumping ahead a little bit, when you get through the greenway and start dealing with the gardener, those questions kind of come up. There is some sentience going on there. They refer to themselves and the group of the kind of myconid growths as the chorus and all these things. So there's a whole lot going on there. This game is itself a examination of sentience, of life, of living under the precarious nature of capitalism in this kind of far future where, corporations are still holding on to power. I have this kind of quick description I want to run through just for those who are unfamiliar with the game, to just kind of acquaint ourselves with the idea of the Sleeper and our setting here of the space station of Erland's Eye. So in this game, Citizen Sleeper, you play as a sleeper. It's an android of sorts with a bioengineered body called a frame that's driven by this emulated consciousness of a real person. So
I don't mean to be pedantic here, but android of sorts, it is just an android.
Okay, I was thinking because it's it has to do with the emulation and stuff, that it's kind of not exactly. Yeah, the definition behind what's an android is
because there's no actual biological parts. It's not a cyborg.
Right. So that's the different. Yeah, that's the major differentiation. Yeah. So you play as this android. You're a sleeper. These sleepers are like the perfect labor force, like an indentured servant class. The real person whose mind.
Are you listening, United Healthcare? Take notes.
Yeah. So this. I mean, hell, they've got the perfect base of people to pull from. Those who are so far in debt that they've got no other option but to
And
go
sick
into
and dying, yep.
go into cryo sleep and have their brains emulated into this android body who can then go work as an indentured servant for these corporations to eventually, hopefully, pay off that debt in the future.
Never.
So never.
Oops, you've paid off your debt, but your body is dust. So
Yeah, that cryo chamber had a systems malfunction. Sorry.
My internal headcanon is that Citizen Sleeper shares a universe with Blade Runner, so that eventually you're just going to hunted down by Deckard.
Harrison's coming for you. You know, no matter how far out you go into the black, he's coming for you. Yeah, the sleepers are kind of looked down upon, and it comes from that. There's even one character, I think it's Hardin, who is like this kind of corporate stooge who has kind of managed to escape retribution and responsibility for the role he played as a corpo scum. Yeah. And he like has kind of weaseled his way into what's like the remnants of this union that's now called Haven Age. He says something basically, it's like, you as a sleeper are just you're a recreation of the same person's brain. You have their same flaws, and this was a person who elected to put themselves to sleep to work off the debt that they incurred through you, the sleeper, rather than doing it themselves. So there's like, you have this kind of moral failing. You're not someone who is willing to do the hard job, so he's basically, his whole plot is like, you have no way to judge me for the decisions that I make because, you are this, you're the sleeper who, nobody should have any faith in. You are unreliable. You are not human.
I mean, your life was going so poorly, you chose to just, sell it to a corporation. What the fuck? Like,
yeah,
why should we care?
Yeah, it's like you're accusing me of being, in bed with, with the corpse, but here you are literally sleeping under the,
tethered to them.
Yeah, under you're the Matrix battery, basically. So sleeper frames are able to work in these hard conditions of space life, including they can exist in the vacuum. They are much hardier. They require less energy and sustenance. They're the cheap labor force, and it's something that I wish that they maybe lore wise dug into a little bit more. There's it's basically left to a passing line or two where it's like the sleepers are a loophole to a law that makes sentient AI illegal. So actually, I guess there is more discussion of that because there are several quest lines and characters. You are dealing with several AI and who are growing in sentience.
One of my favorite portions of the entire game.
Dude, you converse with a fucking sentient vending machine. It's awesome.
Yeah, he's great.
Neo Ven was probably my only real friend.
It was incredible, yeah. So
we talked about last week everything becoming an Xbox. Everything becomes an Xbox, gains sentience. Your refrigerator starts talking to you. Your bento box.
It's like what is my purpose?
Cyberpunk
you keep butter cold. Oh my god!
What was the Cyberpunk sentient vending machine? He had a name, right?
But he wasn't actually sentient. Yeah,
no,
I know which one you're talking about. It's like he's got this pretty advanced program. But yeah, that was a cool little quest. But who did it first, folks?
I don't remember.
I don't know. I don't know if that came out in 2.0 or not.
He was an original quest line. In the original game, though, he would get up and T-pose and slide away.
So sleepers are these perfect tools, and these tools for resource extraction. They just exist to work for the corporations. They are slaves to the corporation to enhance their extractive ends. The exploitation of sleepers is maintained through an engineered reliance upon this medical stabilizer that slows the physical decay of the frame, which they kind of describe as like it's an immunosuppressant. So the term that gets thrown around a lot that like should
it's
make
literally the cyberpunk thing,
and it's like anybody who has had an iPhone in the past decade should be well aware of the term planned obsolescence. It's like that there is a literal design function to make this thing not last. So it's like your bio
all of the things we manufacture now.
And so like the organs that are in the biosynthetic organs that are created in this body are designed to eventually be rejected by the body and be broken down unless you keep up this.
That's a real life thing though. When you get like
an
a
organ
hip transplant
an
or organ transplant, your body sees it as a foreign object and is like, "Yo, I don't want that. That's bad."
Fun, actually, even more of a fun fact about that is your eyes are on a separate nervous system. So if there's this particular...
I don't want to know about eye stuff, please.
there's a particular membrane that if it degrades in your eyeball, your body could end up thinking your eyes are a foreign entity and make you go blind.
Yeah, that's no fun.
I was born that way.
Fun fact.
Maybe it was me.
Don't like to think about that type of stuff. So in this game, we play as one of 10 sleepers who grew tired of being owned by this company, S&ARP, the ones who have the proprietary technology to create sleepers and to emulate human consciousness. These 10 sleepers work together to escape, but we wake up alone, and we don't know what has happened to the rest of this 10. There are some hints
dude,
later,
when you sneak in through the wheel well of an airplane, it's going to be pretty bad, especially if that airplane's in space.
Yeah, so you wake up alone, your body deteriorating, running on emergency power, and you are opened up into this space station, Erland's Eye. And so that is the setting for this game. So Erland's Eye is this now kind of defunct and also deteriorating space station that was once owned and operated by one of the largest interstellar corporations called Solheim. And it was placed there, and this was like kind of like a frontier system. So this station was designed to almost like as like the start of a colonial outpost to help manage Solheim's interest in this burgeoning colonial project that it was the Helion system. That's the system that we're in. However, over a period of time and as things are degrading, and it was one of my favorite bits of kind of anti-capitalist assessments that's given in the game, and it comes through the character Fang. He is a systems engineer for Haven Age. He, describes himself, he's a child of the collapse. So he existed through the collapse of Solheim. And he talks about how...
also notably a ping pong savant.
Is that something like on his character model? Does he have a ping pong paddle?
In Balls of Fury, Christopher Walken's character is Fang.
Is Fang.
Deep cut.
So he says somewhere, and I don't know if this is a quote that I had pulled. I kind of wish it was, but I don't think I did. It's that the fall didn't happen overnight. It was something that was, again, like your body as the sleeper, slowly decaying. Yet this company trying to hold out as long as possible and squeeze as much profit from these...
Did they not realize that they could just synthesize some mushrooms to save themselves or turn scrap into condition? Are they stupid?
Yeah. Are they stupid? Yes. One of my favorites.
But maybe, Ben, this is where you're getting to, but he does essentially, if I'm remembering correctly, state that Solheim made the calculated decision to let it fall apart and just focus on extracting value and not trying to... There was no goal.
They knew it was inevitable.
After
a certain point in time, they knew it was inevitable. They just went pure extraction mode and was literally get as much out of this as we can. The lives of the real people here be damned, to the point where they, and this again should feel familiar to anybody who is in any type of, kind of manufacturing industry or anything like that. Just remove all sorts of regulations and fail-safes to the point where things get so dangerous that,
safety regulations get in the way of productivity.
Yeah, and so the real kind of precipitating, if there is one moment where Solheim's control over the station truly ends, is when this like unregulated, unlicensed pilot carrying a load of palladium ore crashes into the station and kills hundreds of people, cuts off like half the station from the other half, and it just shit. Everything goes to shit, and so Solheim loses control over the station, and so the station is now existing in this. It's walking this like knife's edge of total system collapse, constantly on the brink of ruin until it is. Actually, until is not even the right word. It still is existing in this kind of precarious state, but it is somewhat stabilized when it's taken over by a former union of workers that existed under the Solheim control. And so this union of workers renamed the station Erlin's Eye after their leader and organizer, Andre Erlin. The union, however, eventually becomes this kind of social democratic bureaucracy of Haven Age that I've already described, and they struggle to maintain order in regular operations. And Fang, again, is the character who is our kind of window into all that. He talks about how, like, we're dealing with systems that were invented before the collapse, before some of our birth. Like, we don't know how these things work. There are so many secrets of Solheim's operation here that we don't know. We've had to like completely reverse engineer things, and basically we're holding this station together with spit and duct tape type of shit.
That's how it should be.
So like, the remaining zones of the Eye are just fractured and dominated by these emerging political factions and regular people just trying to get by. And it's here that we, as the Sleeper, must forge a new life for ourselves, one cycle at a time. I want to start off with the discussion of the game's development with this idea of the mundanity of life, those regular people. That seems to be the core inspiration for Gareth Damian Martin, the solo dev for this game, going under the studio name Jump Over the Age. Gareth Damian Martin was the main developer, programmer, writer, all that. There are two other names that need to be mentioned as contributors, although I don't think they are like officially, they're not members. Jump Over the Age is just Gareth Damian Martin. So the character artwork was done by an artist, Guillaume Singelin. I don't know if they're French. I don't exactly know how to pronounce their name.
Close enough.
Yeah.
And then the score is by Amos Roddy, who is like relatively prolific in the kind of indie. He did the score as well as the sound design. Everything else is Gareth Damian Martin. So I've got like throughout this discussion of the development of the game, I've found some interesting quotes that Gareth produced in various interviews and articles. The first one I want to start with is how this game, again, talking about the focus on the regular people and just the kind of existing in this state of precarity that is kind of characteristic of this stage of capitalism, is their inspiration from this game, Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor. And so it's this idea of looking at this. There's this grand world of this grand sci-fi picture that is being presented, but focusing on this kind of how it's possible to then create and dig into the weeds of this kind of slice of life story. They say that, and I forget if this is where they mention another point of reference and inspiration, but kind of in a reaction to, was Mass Effect. So they say, as science fiction stories drag the narrative toward explosive quests, I want to stay with these people living ordinary lives in extraordinary settings. It's like the Death Star is there, off in the distance, but people are still living meaningful lives around it. The infrastructure needed for those sweeping set pieces affects thousands of lives, which play out month to month and have next to nothing to do with the big space war. That's us. And, in an interview or a presentation they gave at like the BAFTA Awards, they gave this like quote that like I'm just going to paraphrase here. It's like how none of us as real people can relate to the Commander Shepherds, right? There's this funny joke where they're like, none of us here are government agents with no oversight who can carry out extrajudicial murders and whatever with zero consequences, and then paused and was like,
free healthcare.
It's like, if any of you are, please leave. If any of those people are here, please leave. This is not for you.
You're not welcome.
This is not for you. So that's what I'm saying. It's like this game is a reaction to that trend in sci-fi storytelling of looking at the diving deeper into the world that these huge, bombastic, really kind of cinematic stories, these epic space operas, are set in. You can actually kind of get a better sense of the world by moving away from those kind of the special cases, the Commander Shepherds, the Luke Skywalkers, the hero, right? Looking at the lives of real people is really what's going to tell you how this world works and how this world operates. So I really found that kind of refreshing and also effective. You get a better feeling of how this world and its politics and its infrastructure is going to work. So none of us have anything to do with the big space war. That's us. We're all living around the Death Star right now, hearing about climatic events playing out somewhere else. Meanwhile, we're getting through the day to pay rent. With Citizen Sleeper, I wanted to strike a balance between those two extremes of drama by juggling a suspenseful, momentous journey in tandem with the relatable, intimate experiences of real people, especially those in society's periphery.
Actually, we don't pay rent in this game. We live in an abandoned shipping container unless you build up the apartment using scrap material.
Until you
can...
Or you move into the commune.
On the Spire, you can rent one up there.
That is where
that's
the only
hotel.
renter. It's I'm pretty sure that's a pod hotel.
Yeah,
pretty much. But it's what it like represents it as.
It's a Japanese pod hotel,
which is where we'll be staying when we go to Japan.
Yes,
tripled up to pod.
I can't wait to marinate in my own stink in one of those little closed off pods. It's going to be great.
I can't wait to get kicked out because my snoring is so loud that the entire country of Japan deems me a natural disaster.
Yeah, I wonder if they're soundproofed. I wonder if they have some that like actually close you in and you're basically sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber.
I mean, if that's true, I'm going to train like Goku and become Super Saiyan.
It's your opportunity.
So Ben, I don't want to jump ahead.
No, feel free, go.
But what you've said about Damien's quotes there, I find interesting because as I was wrapping this game up, I was thinking, this is the first slice of life game I've ever played. I don't know if you all feel that way, but to me, this is firmly kind of in that genre in terms of how you interact, what the gameplay is. Like, I consider this kind of like
a survival crafting game without the crafting, essentially.
I mean, there are things you're crafting. I'm built a ship mind and some other things.
Yeah. And harvest some mushrooms and paid to feed a stray cat multiple times and
which turned into a money sink for me because like I did the ones where you got you get the cutscene, quote unquote cutscene thing where you actually pet the cat and I'm like, oh, it wants me to keep feeding it. It's still there. So I made sure. I even wasted so much time. I'm like, all my quests are in the Greenway. I'm over. I have to go back and forth on the ferry. I'm like, oh, maybe it's that I need to like feed the cat for like 20 cycles straight or something. So I'm making sure, even if all my shit's on the other end, that I'm schlepping my fucking Android ass back to the other end to feed this damn cat. You do get a blurb about it in the final ending of the DLC.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I did the same thing.
Never again.
That cat got a lot of my cryo.
Granted, at that point, I had
cats be doing.
I had the I had the discount, so it was like only 3 cryo per.
The discount's the best thing you can get in this game.
Yeah, it really is huge. I stopped.
No,
I kind of stopped feeding
I was
it.
mad I didn't pop
Yeah.
one. I didn't pop a trophy. I was mad. I
I
wanted
was
a trophy.
totally expecting it to be something like that. Like, yeah, like, okay,
At one point,
you've
I
made
just
your
sat
initial...
there and just pumped like 60 plus cryo into it in one cycle just to see if like...
I did that at first. I did a bunch and nothing happened. I'm like, okay, maybe it's got to be... It's not just number of times.
I think it came after one of like the Bliss quest lines where he gives you like 500 cryo, and I was like, "Yo, I'm rich, bitch. I'm gonna feed it all to this cat."
I'm telling you, that is like super accurate for cats. They give you, whatever that disease is called that they infect you.
The feline
It's called
leukemia.
toxoplasmosis.
Yes.
Yep, toxoplasmosis.
You got toxoplasmosis.
Is that the feline leukemia thing? Is that...
No, toxoplasmosis
No.
comes from feline fecal matter, and it theoretically invades your mind.
It makes you like cats more.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even joking. It makes your cats like smell good to you and things like that. Like, it's very funny.
It doesn't work on me because I call my cat Stinky because she is stinky. You're stinky.
But you're still giving her affectionate attention, even if it's calling her stinky, so it's
God
working.
damn. Yeah, so I
Perfect.
really enjoyed that aspect of it. True, and I don't know. That's an interesting question, though, Andrew. I think you're probably right. For myself, that like, I would always gravitate more towards the big cinematic, action, adventure style, Sony first party kind of game, right? I love Mass Effect. I loved playing that, because to me those were fun, because that's not me, that's never going to be me.
It's why I don't play survival crafting games, because my entire life is survival crafting.
There's an interesting point of tension there, right? Where it's like, this is so cathartic because it is so reflective of our lives and the struggles that we just go through on the day-to-day. Whereas I like also playing those kind of crazy things that are never going to happen, because my life is what it is, right? And it's the closest you're going to get to feeling like the hero in your own story is playing a game like that, is immersing
I'm never
going to
wake up one day and just flip my sheets off and be Eve from Stellar Blade.
One can only hope.
Hey, with the right cosmetic surgeon, anything is possible.
I'm crazy now.
The right,
especially because that's a Korean game. You're not very far off.
Yeah. But Ben, that's something that I think my like experience and playthrough spoke to. This is not a game style I generally play, for sure. Even more so than you, I am like the first party Sony type of gamer. And I struggled with connecting with this initially because of how much it was like, this just feels like a job.
I do
in
think
life.
that the first 2 hours are the hardest part of this game to push through.
100%. I had the same experience.
Oppressive of like, wow, I barely make any money. I barely can afford the medicine to stay alive. Like I feel like really hyper focus on like doing jobs that give me energy because I can't afford to be buying food to give me energy.
Yeah, your margin of error is slimmer in those.
Once you get to like the 3-4 hour mark, and all of a sudden you're like rolling in cryo, and like you've got stabilizer that costs 80 cryo, or you can go across the greenway and give that lady 2 mushrooms to make stabilizer, and that shit's being handed out like candy at a certain point. You do the engineering feat where you can convert scrap into condition.
Yeah, it really opens up kind of at that 2 hour mark. I agree. But that's where this game's narrative kept me intrigued. If it weren't for how well done I think the stories of this game are laid out and the paths they take, I probably would have dropped off around them, because it just doesn't...
Do you know who pulled me through?
The mechanics of it are a little bit basic.
Lemon Mina pulled me through.
I mean, yeah, of course. Them, I think a lot of them. It wasn't just them, Lem and Mina for me, but obviously
they were just the first NPCs where it felt like, okay, like I need to help them.
Right.
More so than like Bang is more like, he's like, you need to help me.
Yeah.
Like he's telling you that. And Ankita she's interesting.
She is a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, not everyone's
my
a bad
favorite.
person, because, like,
I was
is it
way more
Emil?
hostile.
I don't think his name is Emil, but I'm
Emphas.
yeah, Emphas. Sorry, I've been playing Stellar
the
Blade and played the DLC for Nier, so Emil is ingrained into my head.
the storytelling mushroom cook.
Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kita is I was way more hostile to her in this second playthrough. I straight up was like, I don't want your blood money. What are you doing here? You know, you're
Yeah, that's when she shows up to Bliss's.
I'll never forgive you type of thing. Like, you know, and I had no interest whatsoever in going with her. And she like
I mean, I
shows
did
very
just so
little
that I could
remorse.
pop that ending,
Yeah.
and then went
Yeah.
back and then didn't go with her and hung out with Moritz.
Yeah, Maurice is a homie. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is like, I don't have a lot of quotes for this one because it was more just like kind of general things, but it's kind of speaks to what we're talking about here with how that kind of game design works and that kind of the oppressiveness of that first bit in the management it takes to kind of deal with and make these choices and weigh the pros and cons and the risk involved with going too far down one path in that opening thing to get into potentially this kind of deadly cycle.
Well, it's when I played it on stream, I think I said it on the stream itself that the like having you start out with your condition already being bad and like having like no energy and having to like fight through what is essentially the worst case scenario at the start to show you like, hey, you don't want to get here again. Like, do everything you can to prevent this from happening. It's a nice like intro section.
I wonder if I would like it more or less. Like in both my playthroughs, I felt like it was something that there was the threat of it, but that never actually ultimately came to pass. And I never found myself in this risk of fail state. I was always had enough cryo to get stabilizer. Until then, yeah, I'm progressing enough to I'm able to make it myself. You open up the noodle stand and you can get energy and a little bit of cryo for one dice roll. And there are so many ways that you are able to not deal with this. But like
Photosynthesize.
I still think converting scrap to condition is like the cheat code in this game.
for me, I only used that a couple times.
You can maintain your condition at one above permanently.
Right, but you then have to waste dice on getting scrap. Whereas I used it the most at a point in the DLC where I did not want to waste stabilizer, even though I had like 3 or 4 in the tank. I didn't want to waste it though, but it was the highest time crunch I had in the entire game where I couldn't finish everything. It was impossible to finish everything. I'm pretty sure it was designed that way to be impossible.
I never let my condition drop below all max dice ever after the first one.
I would always go to. I would let it go to. Nope. I would drop to right, letting it go down to 3. Like right before
the
it
second we got to the cycle
yeah.
where it would drop down to the 1 dice off, I would either have a stabilizer ready, scrap to maintain for now, or I'd have my mushroom thing going so that I could go convert some mushrooms.
Yeah, I'd never felt it pressing enough in terms of time restraints that I would let it go.
I just wanted to have my maximum amount of dice at all times. I didn't want to play.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely, I did the same thing you did. Once it got to I was losing 2 dice, that's when I re-upped.
Yeah, same.
My condition.
I was saying though, like that point in the DLC where it's like, again, you're like, it's like, oh shit, you need full dice this entire 12 cycles, and even having all 6 dice for the 12 cycles, you still can't finish it all. Yeah, I burned a stabilizer to stay up above, and then like made sure I was getting some scrap to maintain the just above dropping that first die, just to be able to
whole like
do it all.
I mean, little peek behind the curtain. If you don't engage with the DLC immediately and you get to a spot where you're
not supposed to. You're supposed to.
What I'm saying is when you get past the time crunch of like you're being hunted, and you shut off your tracker and you don't have that oppressive timer hanging over you, you can just go spend an entire cycle just dumping all your dice into scrap and just create a like 12 plus scrap surplus that you can just hold on to.
Yeah. I had never done that. Like I did it eventually to get to make sure I had that for
scrap
that
for condition and the dice reroll. Where like
the dice reroll.
Dice reroll is sick because then you use your good dice and you're like, all right, turn these 1s and 2s into something better, please.
Unless you're doing
but once you're done with all of that.
Yeah, I mean there are points that become later quest lines where you're not going there regularly. You're only going there for a purpose of.
And a lot of those require higher dice than lower dice.
I was going to say, usually in those endgame ones, they're all high dice.
Yeah, like all of Feng's final quest line ones require 6s and 5s. And there's a time crunch there too, because you've got like 4 cycles to pull it off or something like that. And you're sitting there like, man, I just opened up a full cycle with nothing above 4.
Yeah, no, that one you have, I think that's a 6 cycle timer for that one.
Whenever they throw a timer on it, when it's going to end and the bad thing could happen, that became my hyperfixation. And I always tried to make it so that only one of those was going at a time, so I wasn't juggling, like, I need to fix Bliss's ships, but I also need to help Feng, hack into this system. And I also need to make sure that I've got Lem and Mina prepared so that we can get on the side rail together and die.
That clock system, I want to bring it up. I own the book, but I don't have I haven't actually, I haven't been able to dive into it. And I mentioned it to you guys though. This game as a whole is heavily inspired by tabletop RPGs. And most specifically is the one Blades in the Dark. That's focused around heists,
the edgy
D&D, kind of, but like it's edgy kind of heist movie kind of thing, but like you're in kind of a Victorian magical era type thing, kind of steampunky, kind of.
Oh, it's Bloodborne.
Kind of, yeah. But yeah, so there are 2 things that are featured heavily from there. The one is that clock mechanic, this idea of things being on these kind of clock cycles. And the other is downtime as a feature is a major one. And so that, again, goes to this idea of this slice of life and the decision-making process of deciding where are you putting your resources any one day. And we've talked about it, the gameplay side of this is the dice rolling that's determined by your condition that as it degrades, if you're not keeping up stabilizer,
I actually really like the dice mechanic because, like, this game isn't really skill. It's not skill based. It's management and luck, which is kind of like how life works.
Right. Absolutely. And yeah, it ties into its theme and the kind of.
Could you imagine if you woke up every day and there was a full visualization of like your luck for the day, and you got to see like, oh, fuck, today's going to be a shitty day. 1, 1, 1, 2, 3.
And they talk about this too in their description of how this is supposed to be reflective of our lives living in this kind of late stage capitalism era where it's like you wake up and fuck, I've rolled all 1s. I feel like shit, but gotta grind, gotta hustle.
I'll do that 9 to 5.
I slot that number 1 dice into my steering wheel when I get in my car to commute, and it's like, nope, negative out.
So yeah, they base this game heavily on their experience with the gig economy, and that's where this kind of system finds its origins. They say that I'd been inspired by the awful behavior of Uber, which had led to drivers in serious debt having to lease their cars while working 15-hour days, spent evading plainclothes repo men during. And that dystopian stories have a history of portraying corporations as ruthless and ruthlessly efficient. In fiction, scary corporate power comes from their staggering thoroughness and productivity. Meanwhile, in our world, we're seeing this ruthlessness starting to exist, but it's not efficient at all. It's poorly implemented, completely sociopathic, and spreading into every facet of life.
Okay, is that the end of the quote, Ben? Because there was something that I took a picture of because I thought it was such a great point, and it ties in with exactly what they're saying there. And it was from the Navigator. And he's explaining how, I believe it's the hunter at this point. The hunter has gone blind. And the Navigator says...
Yeah, it's Killer, I think. At that point.
The Killer? Okay.
Killer has no eyes. Yeah, hunter is the one that gains sentience and gets trapped in a loop.
Okay, yeah. So the Killer is blind. But Navigator ends up saying those that will execute commands endlessly, even to their own destruction. It is good you ended it here. And that to me is very indicative.
That's what
Right.
Matt
Yeah,
texted me. Was it yesterday? Where he's like, he trapped.
No, it was
Killer.
Friday.
And I just responded with cruel. That's cruel.
I intentionally trapped it.
I killed it, but I thought I think that's speaking exactly to what Damien's talking about there, in that like they aren't ruthlessly efficient. They are just ruthless because they have one goal, and that is extraction and capital. And it doesn't matter. They will cut their nose to spite their face. That is the goal. It doesn't matter if there is a negative outcome. The money's been made, and that is the end.
I'd like to defend myself for a second here.
Damned.
Yes.
I trapped Killer intentionally because it is not my purpose to kill the thing that was designed to do what it did. It was executing exactly as it was done to.
For me, it was done out of pity.
You were doing it as a mercy kill.
Yes,
I was leaving it there because
it
it doesn't know any better. It can't see, it can't sense, it can't taste. So as far as it knows, it's a fucking orca at SeaWorld swimming in a small tank in a circle.
Yeah, going crazy, going insane.
Yeah.
The hunter part of it made me feel bad, so I didn't want to do that to Killer.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't feel bad for Hunter at all because I felt Hunter was the most oppressive part of I was always scared to delve into hacking because I was like, I don't want Hunter to kill me.
I have to go back to my first experience with the game, and I know I felt the same way. And that I was so nervous that Hunter was going to be doing damage to me, that I was going to be put at actual risk. It's not really the case. That doesn't really happen. You can basically just
take away the illusion of it. It's there. It's real. It's scary. Yeah. When I get shot by a gun and my screen turns red for a second, it's real damage.
The last bit that I have here on the game's major influences that will make sense, obviously, as we've discussed the how frequent and how prevalent the use of mushrooms are as this kind of narrative and thematic tool. Not just Mario.
This is the end.
1993 Mario live action movie. Folks, go check out previous episode to see our analysis.
Citizen Sleeper exists in a distant future of the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah. So this influence comes from a book called The Mushroom at the End of the World by Anna Tsing.
Yes.
Which focuses on the precarity of life existing on the margins of capitalism's influence, which Tsing describes as a ruin. Damien Martin, though, says, I never wanted to make a story centering around taking down a comically evil conglomerate. I wanted to tell a story at capitalism's periphery, where so many of us have learned how to exist. Our world is full of systems we can't ever conceivably control. We are surrounded by tiny, fragile walls. When those walls buckle and break, we tumble toward mental breakdown, bankruptcy, destitution, or even death. And so it's this idea of capitalism as a ruin that is what I think is most compelling. And it's obviously, we see that in the state of Erland's Eye. And it is something that is, it's not, when you think of ruin, your mind maybe thinks of, this kind of desolate wasteland type of thing, but that's not really what it is. It's, you see these vestigial kind of limbs of former systems that are breaking down, that are falling apart under the weight of their own contradictions, yet things still persist. There's still this kind of outline of the way things used to be, and it's how we deal with that kind of, do we take inspiration from it? Do we learn lessons from it? How do we move forward? Is it something that we try to emulate? Do we try to recreate and uncover this history, or do we try to create a history for ourselves, something new? And there's one quote, it's from the DLC, where you are diving into the depths of Solheim's history and the systems involved. You get to the station center, and you have this, it's I don't think there's an actual choice to be made, but it's the sleeper is thinking about, do I Do I stay down here and try to uncover the secrets of Solheim and how the station works? There's so much we could learn here. But it says, if the eye is to become anything more than an offshoot, a temporary structure, it must form its own history, its own stories, stronger than anything that came before. Unlocking these Solheim secrets won't do that, but the persistence, the stubborn drive to survive that is in the veins of every person in this place, that will, and that is what you are trying to save. Yeah, because, spoiler, shit's going down in the DLC. It could be a complete end state for the Eye and all of its inhabitants. There's stuff going down. It's high stakes.
My character doesn't have to worry about that. He assimilated with an AI and dissociated from them.
Okay, so cool. So let's open it up then fully to discussion of quests and endings and what where you kind of went with it. I know for my first playthrough, Matt, that is where I ended it. I did a bunch of, I did all that was like the final ending. There are three quest lines that result in these kind of end states, is what I'll call them. And that they, depending on your choice, no matter your choice, will lead you to a credits roll. You can then keep going.
Technically speaking, it's 3, but it's 6 because the alternate choice also leads to a credit roll.
It's actually 7 because
you can leave Lemon Mina behind.
Lemon Mina's has 3.
Yeah.
So the 3 quest lines that result into these offshoots are Lemon Mina, Ankina in Bliss, and Rico in the Greenway. You've got
not to be confused with the Rico in the Greenway that we know.
Yeah, you've got 3 choices with the Lemon Mina one. So yeah, technically there are 7 outcomes that will lead to a credits roll. On my initial playthrough, I ended with assimilating with the Greenway. And since we're talking about it now specifically, I want to just say that that was my initial playthrough. But so obviously in this second one, I'm making different choices, at least first, just to see what happened, to make sure I'm seeing the different things. And so like the first one is, in my initial playthrough, I just stayed behind and let Lemon Mina go, which I think was a better ending, which Matt and I talked about both of these individually, and I want to bring them up and we'll get to them. But I found staying behind and letting Lemon Mina go was better than going with them. And that actually, I think that deciding to return from the Greenway is actually the better ending, and it's more bittersweet, but it actually hits home on this message of, yes, the precarity of our situation, but the persistence to go on and struggle on to live. It's another quote that I pulled after this one where it's you make the choice to return to the station rather than disassociating and becoming part of the chorus with the Greenway. It says, for a moment you feel like you've made a terrible mistake. Who would choose this weight, this anxiety, this deep well at the center of existence? But then you feel it. Rico's hand, gripped hard around yours, trembling a little, sweating a little. Rico's hand with its brittle bones and crumpled skin. Rico's hand. And in that moment, you understand why you made this choice. And then you squeeze Rico's hand and you wake up. And it's about connection. It is about forming community. It is about making relationships with people. That's how we persist. That is how we continue. That is how we grow.
And can I add one thing there? I just add that it also, the reason I'm with you, Ben, and I think in my mind that's kind of the canon ending, is it also implicitly states the importance of the natural world, for, kind of lack of a better term here, being a part of that community as well. It's not just the human connections, but it's also a connection to, that the earth or, the station, the Greenway, however you want to frame it in this setting. But that connection is also implicitly important in that community and in that building. So that's where that to me is what sealed that as the canon ending. And I wanted to throw that out.
I was telling Ben in the text that I got 6 of the 7 possible endings because I didn't leave Lemon Mina behind, because that requires a whole different choice tree beforehand.
There's a whole choice path that you have to go into for that one.
And I don't necessarily think any of the 6 endings are bad endings. I think each ending has its positives and negatives to it, and it's just a different outlook that you have to take it from. Like you were saying, like, well, going with Lemon Mina's a bad ending because she ends up dead or alone.
I put it in quotation marks. It is the quote unquote bad ending of that path in my mind.
So I do
thematically
I am interested. Yeah, so I am interested in that take because that is my like B canon ending in my mind, purely because of the particular line where you can choose to say we are a family. And I think like that sort of coalesces those themes really well as
that was my entire point, was essentially that like you're throwing away the dystopia to give this girl something that she would never have a chance at otherwise. And it's throwing away your future for someone else's.
Yeah. And so my view on it, and I think that absolutely sells itself as a appropriate, a fitting, a deeply tragic and bittersweet ending.
How could you say no to Bun Bun?
And I totally agree with that. And I don't think it misses any points. But to me, trying to maintain this kind of hopeful sense about it, my response to Matt earlier today about this was, I thought it was better to, and it still hit these notes of kind of tragedy of like that they're leaving and you're left behind and the uncertainty of your position still existing. But it was, to me, it felt better to be able to, as me the player, imagine Lemon Mina's future. It was, I even think the way I phrased it in the text was actually, I think, better. Just that it was, rather than having it spelled out for me, I had more hope for them when I just stayed behind, and could imagine this better future for them, rather than seeing what really happens. And
you went for the little kid, my pets are going to a farm upstate route, where they're going to have all of the greenery to play with.
I could imagine that, yes, there would be struggle and that all these things would happen, but then you're just like, Lem dies. You have no stabilizer. You run out of power. You've got to be put into emergency save mode. Mina can only boot you up occasionally, like to tell you that Lem is dead and that she's alone, and you have no knowledge that you will ever actually reach your goal. And so it's this idea, you give her a family for this time, but you eventually leave her alone. And
I mean, that's reality, though.
Absolutely.
Family is not forever. Family always has an end point.
Absolutely. But to me, it was like, as the player, yes, I think it's a little bit selfish, but to be like...
The hope is that you create a properly socialized young girl who can then branch out and be able to interact with other people. Because the Mina that we initially encounter with is incredibly socially isolated and cut off.
And the one other thing I would say there that I kind of read into with going with them is it's not that you're leaving her alone, and I don't think that like we're a family thing is necessarily exclusive to the three of them. I kind of think of it as more like they are choosing to become a family with all of the other people that are also going to be working on the
side rail.
Celsius.
I think it's this. I think it's sidereal. I don't think it's side rail. I think it's side.
No, it's side rail.
Yeah, the sidereal, whatever.
Sidereal
but like, it's more that they are getting their community on the ship, and it's not the arrival of getting to where they're going isn't even Lem and Mina's necessarily.
Matt's the one who can't read. It is
side rail.
It is spelled side real, not rail, and so sidereal is how you would pronounce that.
Sidereal.
Nah, side rail.
Side rail. I like side rail. I definitely was saying side rail in my head.
Tell me how right I am.
It's sidereal horizon.
I think you're outvoted 3-1.
No, that is an actual word. I'm pretty sure.
Words don't matter.
Yes, sidereal of or with respect to the distant stars.
All right, fitting.
Yeah, that fits better. Side rail.
The Google AI, the audio thing is telling me sidereal. Thank you. Thank you. Vindicated.
Yeah, so you're gonna vindicate yourself through an AI.
It actually wasn't the AI. It was just the dictionary. But yeah, still probably, powered by fucking ChatGPT.
The one that Jack Donaghy recorded at Princeton University.
But yeah, so Lemon Mina, we talked a little bit about Bliss and Ankita, like the Ankita
That's the one that I had the hardest time doing a good justification for. My good justification is learning how to forgive.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, it was just like, no, fuck it.
Like,
that one was the clearest, like, no, there's still more for me to do here. That this is just
technically speaking, that was the last round of endings I got. So I did the go with them first and then stay behind second.
My order of operations was Lemon Mina, Bliss and Ankita, and then Greenway. Rico and Greenway.
I did Lemon Mina, Greenway, a whole bunch of shit that I forgot to do with like the bar, and then Bliss and Ankita. Imagine my surprise when it says that I'm done doing Bliss's quest, and then there's a new timer for him. And then I show up, and then Ankita's there.
You keep misgendering Bliss. She is a she. She is
everyone's
a woman.
To be fair, you do get all of your missives from Moritz. So yeah, Moritz. So that's fair enough. Her talking head is male.
But yeah, so like Ankita's storyline just makes me so fucking angry, and there's like this kind of lack of resolution. It's either you forgive her or you don't, and to me, it's that lack of resolution fits better for basically not forgiving, in a sense that this is something that's just it exists now, and this is the state of things. We're not gonna sweep things under the rug. There just wasn't enough motivation for me to consider leaving with Bliss and Ankita there. It doesn't feel compelling. If I'm going to critique any of the writing in any of the endings, that's the weakest one in my mind. I think Ankita's quest is very good. It is evocative.
It's the people going.
Makes you feel angry. It evokes an emotion, so that is effective there. But it's just like, in terms of
what if instead of anger it invokes seduction?
So like, I don't feel bad about say sending them off. That's. I don't feel like I'm missing something.
Are you saying like when Ankita goes away after she kills
after she kills
what's his name?
She kills Ashton and the other sleeper.
Yeah.
But then once you complete that quest and complete Bliss's, they come together. The last job with Bliss is refitting Ankita's ship, and you are given the opportunity to leave with them to go towards like the inner systems.
Yeah. No, so I was curious if you were saying that you felt like Ankita's storyline would have been better left just before, like at the end of her killing.
No. Like, I think it was good to bring her back. I do really think it was good to bring her back. No, it's just more like that was an end state. I didn't feel it felt like kind of rushed and out of nowhere to be like, oh, let's leave with them.
Let's leave.
And
gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's
more because Bliss kind of comes in late game and there isn't a whole lot there,
and
you're like
Bliss a lot earlier.
You absolutely can. But like, I feel more attachment to Moritz than I do to Bliss. So it's like, why would I elect to leave then?
When you stay behind with Moritz and you get the dialogue choice where he's like, it's either like it's your bay now or something like that, and then you get to say like, no, it's our bay, or something along those lines to like.
I gave him basically sole ownership like that.
I did the same. I said, "This is yours now, son."
But
I found Moritz to be an anxiety-riddled loser who needed someone to help guide them.
But see, what I viewed as someone who needed to, someone to show confidence in, and had the capacity to do these things. So he provides the single highest paying work in the entire thing afterwards. But it's a pain in the ass to go up and down the hub. Not gonna lie.
I did. That was something that I did not like. Was that you had to like click twice to go up or twice to go down? Like, I feel like you should have just clicked into the little icon, and then it should have shot you up instead of having to open up to the new page, click again, and go. But
yeah, that is something I wanted. We've not really touched on, just like the gaming mechanics of this, but I agree with you, Mike. I did
This game
start to
controls much
feel a
better on
little.
a mouse than it does on a
It is so
gamepad.
much. It is so much smoother playing on PC because you're
Makes
literally
sense.
you scroll with you traverse the length of the station with the scroll wheel, and it's so fast and smooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
Clicking the mouse just like click click to do those things super fast, really easy.
I found that some of the controller, because I played on Steam Deck and on PC with the mouse and keyboard, that some of the stuff on Steam Deck with the controller, you would like get to a spot where icons are, and you're like, I want that icon. It's like, no, I don't see any icons for you to highlight.
You'd have to like
Move.
manipulate using the D-pad to like try to
Yeah.
get the right one. It is definitely not as clean. It's
So
super
I
easy.
wanted to
and
talk
good
about
on-
the platforms we played it on because I played it on PS5. So, these controller issues. I think that I either playing it on the computer because my screen is closer to me on the computer or just playing it on the Steam Deck would have been a much better experience purely for like the reading aspect of it and like getting into the story in that sense.
I don't know if on PS5
If you saw my
you
stream
you
of
have,
it and me trying to read off the TV,
so funny to have like because I will give you the fair bit. Reading and reading aloud are two different things. But like trying to read having Matt
reading from-
self-proclaimed illiterate
reading from like 8 feet away from my TV, small text.
Yeah.
So there is a setting. I don't know if you can do it on PS5 though, where you can increase the text size.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't even
I did
look.
it. I did it.
Yeah,
when
I
did the
discovered
Steam
it at the
Deck. I
very
didn't-
end of my stream.
I didn't think it did that much. I didn't
It
notice
didn't.
much difference.
But even if it was smaller on the Steam Deck, just because of like where it is, it's in my hands. I don't know. For reading purposes, I feel like I would have had a better experience than like sitting on my couch, 10 feet away on my TV.
Well, that's too far. That's too far away to play games, anyways. There is some actual math that for this is like, totally off topic, but like for
Size of the screen, elevation of the screen, height
it's
of
like
your seat.
the appropriate distance. And I don't remember the exact number. I could look it up. Maybe it's like 5, but it's like the appropriate distance to sit away from your TV is like 1 or 2.5 times the
size.
It's
No, I don't have a good, like
it's one thing I found that
gaming setup at
I'm an old man now is that I have to like I've regressed to being a little kid where I've got to be really close to the screen.
So
Else I can't
definitely
see
think-
shit.
With
again,
my
just
couch
for the
setup, I
reading.
game predominantly in the seat that's closest to the TV, and then I'm usually leaning forward.
That's all right. So I think the computer aspect of it is a fair reasoning for why it works the way it does.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to kind of overlook those
It was
critiques,
designed for PC
but that makes
at first.
yeah. And I hadn't considered that aspect of the game design because
I really think it was
I
just
wasn't.
because
PC gamers are losers. Console
Oh no!
gaming
Don't
is
say
the way to
that,
go.
dude. We
Yeah,
can't afford to defend ourselves from the people who are at terminally online.
No, but
yeah.
I think I definitely would have had an all around better experience on. Yeah,
So I played it. I played it full through on PC and then on Steam Deck, and I think probably my experiences were better on both. One just because it is best on PC, but then also just my familiarity with it made those little sticking points less of an issue.
I didn't find the Steam Deck interface to be that bad.
No, it was fine.
I mean, I had initially had that really sour experience of I got the whole stream set up, was going to play on PC, saw it had controller support, hooked up my controller, and then it wouldn't read the AB inputs to accept the next like round of dialogue. So I then had to disconnect my controller, and it like fucked everything up, and like told my computer everything needed to be at like 400% zoom, so that I could only see a quarter of the bottom window of the game, and my OBS was taking up like 2.5 screens, even though I only have 2 screens of space active.
Yeah, so we've kind of talked about most of the endings, I think. The last thing I kind of want to bring up, and it's something that you guys have no perspective on because it's from the DLC, but it's how all the endings basically revolve around your choice to leave or stay on the station. And that's true even for this end DLC. And so I want to like read through this kind of this it's the end quotes from the DLC of choosing to stay, because leaving is a very bad choice. Makes you feel like shit. So the main there's a reference to a character here. It's like basically your main character that you are dealing with throughout the DLC is this character Peak. They are your kind of main point of contact. There are a bunch of new NPCs and quest lines and all these things introduced, but they are kind of like your major touch point through each of these episodes. And so you end with staying on the station with Peak through it's like you're kind of trying to thwart this. It's not really a natural disaster. It kind of appears that way, and it's the cause of these refugees fleeing and creating this flotilla. And they were fleeing this thing called the Flux, and it has now come here, and it has this risk of like basically destroying the station. And you go through these plans, and it's either do you prepare the station to evacuate and leave, and some people do. Some people do leave, like Tala the bartender. She leaves. And she leaves you the bar if you choose to stay. There are a couple others. But you go through this endeavor, and you're tying in other quest lines too. Gardner has a huge... The Greenway AI has a huge part to play. And it's like you're trying to save the systems that you can. But you can't save everything. And even when you're choosing to stay and even succeeding in this plan, that like things aren't, fine and rosy and peachy. There's lots of struggle to go ahead. But so that's kind of the context for this quote here. And it says, "You feel Peak beside you, holding a little of your weight, and you holding a little of theirs. This is how it will be for many cycles after you both leave the bay and head back into the eye. You will both hold things for each other, remind each other of the choices you made, remind each other why it is important to keep going despite the moments when it seems impossible. You will keep each other going. But for now, there is only you." I think this quote is actually, it's after... It does go into the future of here are all the things that are happening, like that it's really all not good. There's some things to be gained from it, but there's corporate entities that are trying to reemerge and to restake claims, and parts of the station are damaged and people die and things need to be rebuilt and all this struggle that goes on. But so it details all of that. It's like these are things that it frames it almost as these are things that could happen. But obviously it's telling you what will happen. But it says it comes back to the present and says, "But for now there is only you and Peak, arms around each other, walking slowly out of the bay. Two figures born of crippled systems linked together, continuing despite your origins. And in this frozen moment, your focus only on the And in the frozen moment, you focus only on the next step, because that is the only way you have learned to persist. And to persist is to believe that any future at all, is possible." And that right there is in my mind, the core theme of this story in this game. And it is this struggle to persist amidst all of these extreme pressures that make these demands on your life and your survival. Yet it is through the connections, both human and kind of universal, that we make, to your point, Andrew, about say connecting to the Greenway and to the natural world. It is through these connections that we are able to create this possibility for something to continue. And that's our path forward through this crumbling ruin that we see ourselves in. And I think that is a message that is profoundly needed at this time. I feel like some people may try to label games like this, and I was like thinking about this I was having my shower thoughts this morning, and it was like, so there's another game that I was like comparing. Oh, it's Metaphor. It's the ending of Metaphor Refantasio. It's like how these themes and these stories, like cynics could try to
political.
Cynics will try to call them hope punk. I don't know if you guys remember. It was like a year or two ago. That's something that basically liberals try to take a stand of, like the radical the radical nature of hope, but like they just leave it at imagination. They don't move to the next step of action, and they don't make the connection that imagination is the necessary precursor to action. Mm-hmm. And what does that hope look like manifest? And it is in human connection. It is in solidarity. It is in the communal desire to push ourselves forward. To, yes, imagine that future, but then to hold that future accountable to what we need and what we deserve.
I don't want to derail your giant, really well thought out, like, philosophical statement, but all I'm hearing right now is the villain monologue from Spy Kids 1 when he's doing his, like, imagination land thumbs and turning the adults into, I don't remember the name that they called them.
Well, yeah,
they were like
weird creatures. I don't know what they were, but they were weird mutants.
I feel like
he has a whole, like, imagination spiel in that movie.
I feel like we just need to do a Spy Kids episode. I just closed my eyes and
I could see the thumbs walking in the room.
Yeah. We need to do a Spy Kids episode because we
could do Spy Kids 3 because it is It is about a video game.
That's the worst one.
It is. It's terrible.
By far.
It's terrible.
But it's got George Lopez in it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's in all of them, isn't he?
No. It's
Selma Hayek's
Antonio
also in that movie.
Banderas and the guy who plays Machete.
Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
And also Cheech Marin. We love Cheech.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
But Ben, you were saying something there that I think I wanted to kind of speak to with this game. In that I think this aims to have similar. Let me rephrase that. I think there's a lot of parallels between what this game's messaging is with Cyberpunk's, but I think it does a much better job of making that implicit connection to building community. And that's the answer. That's the path through. Whereas Cyberpunk really just kind of is like, this all sucks and like, we got to figure out a way out, but fuck if I know. But fuck if I know. Yeah, but this one is implicit about that community being the answer. And so while it doesn't, explicitly say any political ideas or like how to fix this situation directly, it indirectly is pointing to a path forward. And I think it does a much better job of that than Cyberpunk, something we talked about earlier this year that I think has similar goals but doesn't necessarily hit the mark as well.
Yeah, so these are like my kind of final thoughts. The only thing that we didn't get to talk about, and maybe I'll talk about it in my blog post for this week, is how good the music is, and how I don't think the story hits its themes as hard without the music backing it up. It's like this strange kind of melancholy that, yes, still has this desire for hope at the very least, but to me it was like this the only way I could describe this music is like, it's like broken promises and like kind of squandered dreams put into this kind of audio form, yet despite it all, this maintaining the desire to hope for something more. You see these themes really well executed in his audio. That's something I may want to dive into. I found the soundtrack on Spotify and have been listening to that for the last couple days. It's really cool. And I think I'm going to go read the Mushroom book. I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I've heard of that book before. I am curious in it.
I'm going to go back and rewatch the episode of Ben 10 where they fight the mushroom alien. That's where I got all my education from mushroom biology when I was a child.
Well, I am very happy that I got to replay this game. It was a special discovery for me a couple years ago, and did I say like what sold me originally was the game's tagline, right? The role playing in the ruins of interplanetary capitalism. And this was like at the height of my like real grounding in tabletop games, so to see this kind of play out was cool. I'm pissed at myself that I've missed out on like the pre-orders they've made a tabletop game from this, and I really wanted to get like the full like deluxe thing, but it's like sold out. It's like been sold out for a while, and I don't know if they're gonna do restocks or whatever. But we can also quickly mention that there's a sequel coming out sometime next year. I've played
sometime, it has a date.
It does. Oh, that's right.
I sent it in the chat.
Yeah, that's right. It was recent. Like
It's like January 31st, 2025, or
Yeah,
January
that's right.
21st,
That's
2025.
right.
It's something first.
Citizen Sleeper, Starward Vector, January 1st, 2025.
Nice.
I played the
Cool.
I played the demo of it on stream, and it did manage to get a fail state.
Oh.
in that first couple hours, because there's new mechanics
Interesting.
involved where if you take stress from failed actions, your dice become damaged. And like to the point where like you'll roll a number, but then they get a
Negative model.
They get a penalty.
So that's too close to reality.
And
Stress lowering your luck.
It was this whole bit like it was a fail state for what was given, right? Like there's this. You're going out on this because you're not on the station anymore. There is a station involved, but you're on a ship, and you have this,
you went out to scrap another ship.
Yeah, it was like
You
our
didn't
ship
have
got
enough
damaged.
people to be able to do all the things simultaneously.
Things were just cascading, like doing things enough that were creating these emergency situations that then would have to spend time dedicating to halt them. And just didn't have enough dice to do it all because you can like hire crew and can have them. You have your dice. They have got a very small pool of their own dice and their own skills, and you go off and do that. So it seems to be iterating on a lot of things.
Are you the same?
No, you're a different sleeper. I think you
Okay.
might be one of the 10.
You're the one that
Okay.
Ankita kills.
Don't think you're that. I don't think so. But yeah, I'm excited to play that. And so, yeah, pretty timely that we're covering this now. That actually has a release date.
The release date came out like a week ago.
Yeah. No, I remember as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. So, folks, thank you for joining us on this journey. We appreciate you.
Not the game journey.
No. We will be shaking up our programming a little bit this month just because it's end of the year and holidays. And pretty sure the only other podcast you can expect to hear from us this year is our end of the year episode, which I will, after we are done recording here, we'll figure out what day we're actually going to record that. So be on the lookout for that. You can expect probably at least one, if not two more blog posts through the end of the year as well.
You're probably going to do a Game Awards blog post, I'd assume.
I mean, I did one already. That shit was fucking crazy. That went way longer.
I was
than
thinking more of
I
discussing like the actual winners once they're.
What I was thinking of maybe doing not even an addendum, but like posting like a comment or something and being like, how many did I get right? How many did I get wrong? Type of thing after the fact.
You're going to get them all wrong because Stellar Blade is going to be written in and win all of the awards.
Hey, let's make it interesting. There's probably a gaming market out there that'll accept bets on the Game Awards.
for
so
sure.
why don't we
odds
just
of
make it
Vegas?
for real?
Let's become the bookies.
Yeah, that is no longer a blog post. That's just a full fucking essay that you can go check out on the Patreon, where I break down every category except the esports one. Fuck that. Ignore that shit. You can go check that out. See
You vote Iron Mouse as Creator of the Year?
I don't even think she was nominated this year.
Yeah, you got to write her in. That's the secret.
I did basically I broke it down to what my personal pick is and then what I think is actually going to win. And sometimes they aligned, some more often than not they didn't.
Astrobot.
I think I gave Astrobot a couple. I think Best Family and I think
Hey,
Action
don't
Adventure.
spoil it for the listeners.
They're not going to
hear
be
it.
You gotta
it.
give them a little tease, a little bit of a tease. Go and read it. It's on the Patreon, free and open to the public. Yeah, check out the socials, Camping Comrades on YouTube. Hopefully more coming there in the new year. And that'll do it. Thank you so much. We will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Be